Hi, I'm Payal. I run Ramsud Technologies. And before that, I spent years writing code, then leading teams, then eventually making the decision that decide whether a code base survives contact with reality. So today I want to answer a question I get asked a lot by junior engineers, by clients, even by architects at conferences. What does a software architect actually do? Because most people have the wrong picture. They imagine someone who knows every technology, every database, every framework, every message queue better than anyone else in the room. And look, that's a nice skill to have, but it is not the job. So let me show you what the job is. Here's the trap I fell into early on. I thought being a good architect means being a person with the deepest technical knowledge. So I would go deep into Kafka, Kubernetes, and whatever technology was trending that year. But then I noticed something. Knowing a tool inside out didn't help me decide whether to use it. Knowing Kafka doesn't answer the question that matters, which is why Kafka here for this system with this team under these constraints. So the gap between knowing a tool and knowing when and why to use it, that gap is the entire job of a software architect. So it's not knowing everything, what is it? I would break it into four main things. First, you have to decide what components the system should even have. Before you write the code, you are drawing the boundaries. What should be a separate service? What should be a shared library? What should talk to each other and what should not? So second would be figuring out which quality attributes actually matter for the system. So not in the abstract way. Every system wants to be scalable, reliable, secure, but you can't maximize all of them at once. So the internal admin tool used by 12 people does not need the same reliability engineering that a payment system would. So part of the architect job is having the honest conversation about what you are optimizing for and what you are not targeting. Third, setting the constraints developers should work within. Not micromanaging their code, but drawing the guardrails. Which pattern should be allowed? Where the data boundaries are. What done means for a service before it ships. And the fourth, picking the architecture style that actually fits, not the one that's trending on Twitter that week. So microservices, monolithic, event-driven, layered, each of them have a trade-off. They are not a status symbol. So let me make it concrete because I think this is where it clicks. Say a client comes to us wanting to rebuild their HR platform. The instinct, especially from an engineer who's excited about these new tools, it is to reach straight into microservices, add a message queue, maybe put a LLM part, assistant in front of everything. This is a very cool stack and it is very impressive on paper. But the actual question is, how many engineers do you have to maintain this? What's your actual traffic pattern? Is the system handling 10 requests a minute or it is handling 10,000? What happens if it goes down for an hour? Where's the data sensitive enough that it needs to be isolated? Sometimes the answer really is microservices and event streaming, but sometimes it is a well-structured monolith that a 3-person team can actually maintain with clear internal boundaries so it can be later split apart if it needs to be. And none of the answer is smarter. The job is picking the one that's right for this system, this team, this movement, and being able to explain why. So if you are an engineer listening to this and thinking about growing into an architect role, here's the practical takeaway. Stop trying to learn every technology. Start practicing the questions. Next time your team picks a tool, don't just learn how to use it. Ask why it was picked. What alternative was rejected and why? What would break if traffic went up 10 times? What would you do differently if the team were half the size? You build the architectural judgment the same way you build any other skill, by asking the same question repeatedly on real systems until the pattern matching becomes your instinct. So what does a software architect actually does? They do not memorize technology. They make decisions under constraints that rest of the team can build with confidence. They draw the boundaries, pick the trade-off deliberately, and be able to defend every one of those choices with a reason and not a trend. And that's the work we do with every client at Ramsud Technologies before a single line of code gets written. Because the decisions you make in week 1 are the ones you will be living with for years. If you are building something new and you are stuck maintaining decisions, Nobody remembers making. That's exactly the kind of problem we would like to dig into. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.